Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining me in the record room today. I'm coming on here with a tribute to a recently departed legend of reggae music, one whose name may not be as familiar to many. I'm talking about Winston Morris, better known as Tony Tuff, almost synonymous with the dancehall era of the early 1980s, yet his roots went back much further into the music. Stay tuned for my look at Tony Tuff. Winston Morris was born April 1st, 1955, Kingston, Jamaica, would grow up downtown, Kingston 11, spend much of his childhood outdoors, either playing ball on the street or sneaking off to attend the open-air sound system dances that would be held around the area, where records would be played before a crowd on a Friday or Saturday night. He would become known as a skilled dancer while still in his teens, would enter dance contests, and around this time, the early 1960s, the ska era, he would also be brushing up against fellow local residents like Bob Marley, his vocal tutor Joe Higgs, and aspiring singer Bop, later of Bop and the Belltones vocal group of No More Heartaches fame. Eventually, around 1969, Morris would conceive of the idea to form a vocal group of his own. He would begin practicing with another neighborhood youth, about 14 years old at that time, named Lincoln Sugar Minott, he was nicknamed. Morris would play guitar while Minott would sing, and one day they were observed by a third local neighborhood youth by the name of Derrick Howard, who was playing ball nearby. He was nicknamed Bubbles, or sometimes Eric Bubbles. He would come into the group as well, and they would decide to call themselves the African Brothers. They would take a lot of their inspiration from a well-known vocal group called the Abyssinians, who had a very ethereal, very spiritual tinge to their harmonies, and a very Afrocentric, very cultural nature to their lyrics, and that would be much of the template that the African Brothers would follow. Although they would receive some notice locally, they would find it tough initially to get a break due to the kind of cultural, political nature of the songs they would sing. More commercial, soul type of reggae music was more popular at that time, more commercially accessible. But by the early 1970s, the African Brothers had begun to make records, 7-inch singles, and by this point, they had settled into Winston Morris, usually on lead vocal, taking a large hand in composing and arranging their material, though all three members would contribute equally. Winston Morris would seem to be the dominant vocal presence by the time of their early records, including the reflective, mysterious nature done for producer Rupert Edwards, and the stunning, prophetic Righteous Kingdom, which came out on the Micron label around 1973. That one definitely displaying an influence of the Abyssinians. Maybe Sugar Minott on lead on that one. They would go on to release a series of now well-regarded sides. Some would do well, some even reach the UK, where they would become successful. Moralistic songs like Practice What You Preach, another one with Winston Morris on lead. This is a 2000s reissue on Progressive, Derrick Howard's own label. And another one, A Still Tongue, the African Brothers. They would do, as well as the more cultural-oriented material, they would do romantic or relationship-themed songs like Torturing, but never actually released an LP at the time, wary of exploitation by other producers. These sides would much later be compiled onto a release from Easy Star Records out of the US around 2001. The African Brothers, Want Some Freedom, that title track, very declamatory, very political. It was desired for use by the Jamaica Labour Party for the political campaign, but the group had to decline as they were living in a PNP, the opposing political party. A neighborhood controlled by them would not have been a good move for the group. They were getting veiled threats if that song would be used. And this compiles those series of 7-inch singles and some dubs, some songs apparently not released at the time. 2001, Want Some Freedom by the African Brothers. Just as a personal aside, around this time or shortly after, I heard a live cover version of that stunning Righteous Kingdom by the African Brothers. I think might have been a Burning Spear show. I can't remember exactly, but the opening act was a group of white, dreadlocked, university-aged guys, young men. I think they were from Seattle. They had come north to open up for Burning Spear, if memory serves. They did a diverse range of material, different styles, some Nyabingi percussion, some rub-a-dub style DJing, but one centerpiece of their set was a a cappella rendition of Righteous Kingdom by the African Brothers. They'd probably learned it from this very CD. Stunning, give you goosebumps to hear those close Jamaican-style harmonies live before an audience. The African Brothers, about 1974, they would go to Studio One and record a song called No Cup, No Brook, which was released on the Money Disc label, can be found on the Heartbeat compilation Collector's Edition, Rare Reggae from Studio One, 1989. More recently, it's appeared on a soul jazz compilation, Black Man's Pride, Volume 3. I don't have that one, but I have the first volume of Black Man's Pride. Rare songs from Studio One. This includes some of the same songs as that Collector's Edition release, by the way. No Cup, No Brook. Unfortunately, something of a swan song for the group. The logistics of keeping the group financially afloat would mean that to some extent they would go their separate ways. Not really any internal disputes or anything like that. Just it was not financially feasible to keep the group going with the meager amount coming in from the recordings they did for outside producers. Not much money coming back from that. Trying to finance their own self-produced releases on their own label ITAL just meant they could not carry on, and they would essentially go their separate ways following that, though material credited to the African Brothers would continue to appear for some years to come. Some solo Winston Morris sides would much later appear on Studio One under the name Tony Tuff, and Sugar Minott, of course, would go on to return to Studio One through the late 1970s and revitalize the label in the early dancehall era.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. There you come knocking at the door, but he won't let you in. Says you are full of sin and my contamination. I know it's torturing you, girl. I know it's torturing for survival. So let's fight, struggle, fight, never fall. Let's sing the song of freedom. Let's pray for the rule of a righteous kingdom.
Following the breakup of the African Brothers, Winston Morris would take a bit of a break from the music business. When he came back in a couple of years, it would be under the new name of Tony Tuff, with a few odd 45s appearing on various labels. Circa 1977, I believe, his first LP appearance would be, some sources say 1978, others say 1980, but it would be a split LP with a DJ called Errol Scorcher, born Errol Archer, who was on the rise after performing on various sound systems, would have a hit called Roach in the Corner, which would appear on that split LP, called Tony Tuff Meets Errol Scorcher, appearing on the M. Al's label. Sealed copy of this many years ago. There were a few copies in circulation at that time. I think it was a warehouse find, but side one finds 5 songs from Tony Tuff, including Go On to School, urging youths to further their education, Run Come Come on the Zion Gate rhythm, You Wrong, I believe, is on Bob Marley's Hypocrites rhythm, Hustling, definitely bearing the hallmarks of the emerging dance hall style, while Errol Scorcher's side would include his hit Roach in the Corner, that would later give a title to his own solo LP, Errol Scorcher, born Errol Archer. Tony Tuff's star, however, was also on the rise. Next up, Winston Morris, now rebranded as Tony Tuff, would come into the orbit of maverick, independent roots reggae producer Vivian Jackson, better known as Yabby U. Yabby was becoming known for a particularly heavy, fervent, and uncompromising brand of roots reggae, was gathering a variety of similarly minded up-and-coming artists to his camp, and Tony Tuff would be one of them. For Yabby U, Tony Tuff would release his true solo debut LP, the self-titled Tony Tuff, released in 1980, something of a classic. This would come out on Island Records in Europe. This is a German pressing, bought off Discogs some years ago through a connection with King Sounds in the UK, who owned a label called Grove Music, which had a deal with Island Records. And this would find Tony Tuff singing some very heavy message songs, such as Jah Almighty, Rumors of War, pleading for peace. War is not the answer, for only love can conquer. This would also come out on an Art and Craft 12-inch single with DJ version by Ja Stitch. Rumors of War by Tony Tuff. Art and Craft label. That's a reissue circa 2012. Originally came out around 1979. The Tony Tuff LP would also feature longtime favorite of mine, the massive We No Want No War, also known as One Big Family, or No Warrior, No Terrier, when it came out on 7-inch single. Again, similar theme as Rumors of War, pleading for peace, for the common humanity of mankind to prevail, as well as some lighter songs, Gimme What We Want, Sweet Maureen, but predominantly uncompromising roots reggae, the specialty of Vivian Jackson, beloved by roots collectors worldwide. And this would feature the Gladiators on backing, Clinton Fearon on bass, Alric Forbes and Albert Griffiths on guitars, Santa Davis on drums, cover design by Brinsley Ford of UK band Aswad, Tony Tuff's debut LP, maybe not as well known as some other classics of the era, but definitely one to check out. Very strong debut from Tony Tuff. Some other material through Yabby would also surface on Deeper Roots Part 2 from Pressure Sounds in 2014. This includes a dub plate cut, I believe, if I can find it. I Can't Hide. There would also be a song called Falling Babylon that would appear on the B-side of a Yabby 12-inch, I believe, featuring Tony Tuff, non-album side for Yabby around this period.
Can't you hear me? Oh yeah, no. We want no war on ya. We want no war on ya. No warrior, no tarrier.
Next couple of years, more LPs would start to surface from Tony Tuff. Goes without saying, what I'm showing here, just a scratch on the surface of the output of Winston Morris, Tony Tuff, many records coming out, 7-inch and 12-inch format, LPs, not in my collection, just trying to give a very general introduction here. 1981 would see From Tony Tuff to Lovers Everywhere, a self-produced LP, as well as Tuff Selection, which would be a return to King Sound's Grove Music label, a follow-up to that self-titled debut, which would be released through Island Records again and feature musical backing by members of Aswad, based in London. Another LP around 1982 would be called Reggae in City, also re-released with the alternative title of The Best of Tony Tuff, though it was just a new LP, not a compilation of previously released material. Dubs of many of the tracks from that album would surface as an LP called Roots Radix Dub, credited to bass player Errol Flabba Holt, released in the early 1980s originally, produced by DJ turned producer Ranking Joe, who'd produced the original vocal LP for Tony Tuff. This contains many of the dubs to those Tony Tuff songs. Tony's voice evident in some of the tracks on here, floating through some of the mixes. This is a reissue from a few years ago on Ranking Joe's own label. Tony Tuff in dub, but credited to Flabba Holt. 1981 would see a reunion with Tony's old friend Sugar Minott. The two had founded the African Brothers together. Sugar had gone through an apprenticeship at Studio One in the late 1970s, re-energizing the label as the dancehall era dawned. Dancehall, something of a musical reaction against some of the rigidity that had crept into reggae in the 1970s, the overwhelming dominance of Rastafari, of roots and culture themes. Dancehall shook things up, brought a more youthful sense of energy back into the fold, loosened up some of the vocals, the lyrical content, different subjects now being talked about, though plenty of roots was still going on. Tony Tuff and Sugar Minott as roots as anyone else, but at their core, they were dance hall singers. They had been attending dance halls since their very young days, and it was in this era that their true natures began to assert themselves, their true identities, not so much a reinvention as simply a milieu that they found themselves very at home, very comfortable in. Sugar had left Studio One and founded his own Black Roots label, and Tony Tuff's next LP would be 1981's Presenting Mr. Tuff, co-produced with him and Sugar Minott. Sugar Minott on backing vocals, Presenting Mr. Tuff, featuring Tony in a suitably pugilistic pose on the cover, as befitting his name, though apparently quite a nice and humble guy. Otherwise, that is on Sugar Minott's Black Roots label. This is a former Sound System copy called, something Imperial Sounds. It's actually, I'd been meaning to get this album for years. It's been reissued as of a couple of years ago by Deep Roots Reggae Shop, which slightly tweaked the track list, dropped the cover of Gene Chandler's Groovy Situation, extended rock into a dubwise version. But this is original on the Black Roots label. Found this copy on Discogs from a local seller. Figured with Tony Tuff's passing was finally time to get it. This features Tony Tuff's equal versatility at more roots and culture sentiments, as on King of Kings, praising His Majesty over Burning Spear's swell-headed rhythm. Born in the Ghetto, a sufferation song. Try Our Best, something of a moralistic lesson. Again, Sugar Minott, the very same versatility, equally at home on romantic material as roots and culture styled songs, but their vocal differences, Sugar Minott sweeter, gentler, more understated. Tony Tuff's voice a little drier, though no less versatile in terms of subject matter and approach. Another classic LP from Tony Tuff. Around 1979, Tony would begin an association with street-level reggae music producer Henry Junjo Laws. Laws, who had recently entered the music business, was one of a vanguard of up-and-coming producers who were reshaping the sound and the lyrical direction of reggae music into the early dancehall era. Laws was launching superstars like Barrington Levy into careers that last to this day, and he would begin working with relative veteran artists as well, like Tony Tuff. Tony would record Down in Rome for him circa 1979, appearing on the Jaw Guidance label. This is a sound system copy from Lord Shelley's Disco, part of a bulk lot I bought some years back. A few years later, on the Volcano label itself, Border would appear by Tony Tuff on the Heavenless, aka Entertainment Rhythm. Tony would also begin performing live on the sound system called Volcano, run by Laws, which would be one of the most popular on the island. He would have further hits for Junjo, such as Mix Me Down and Water Pumpy, but perhaps the biggest one that would become Tony's signature song, you might say, was called Come Fi Mash It. Big hit around 1983, even included a bit of yodeling as the dance hall era was in full swing. Things were loosening up, more of an emphasis on fun and good times, married to a heavy reggae beat. That song would give its title to another LP produced by Laws, appearing on Volcano, I believe. I don't have the LP, but that song, Come Fi Mash It, appears on many compilations. It's on the biggest dancehall anthems from Green Sleeves Records, Tony Tuff with Come Fi Mash It. And it is also on the VP compilation, Henry Junjo Laws, Volcano Eruption. There he is there, the rebel music producer, Junjo Laws, producer of Come Fi Mash It by Tony Tuff, included right there. Something of a signature song for Tony Tuff and one of his all-time biggest hits. Also around 1983 to 1984, Tony would begin recording for producer E.J. Robinson's Top Rank label, recording an LP for them, which included songs like Sweet Reggae Music, seen here on the Review 12-inch single. Beautiful custom jacket there for the Review label. And also the robust, energetic Jam It Again, typical Tony Tuff dancehall side, Jam It Again on E.J. Robinson's Top Rank label. This one was a local find many years ago, wandered into one of the big record stores in the city. They had an armful of reggae 12-inch singles, many UK pressings, very cheap back then, some as little as 99 cents, scooped up a bunch of them, just stuff you never normally see around here. Further LPs would be recorded for Whitty Henry's Music Master label, the CSA label, and more. But by 1985, reggae had shifted into digital rhythms, incorporating more programmed beats, keyboard riffs, and Tony Tuff would initially keep recording in the digital era. Some singers struggled to keep up. He would begin recording for Maurice Johnson's Black Scorpio label. In 1987, the Keep the Faith LP would be released, all digitally created rhythms. Tony Tuff sounding quite comfortable here to my ears. That's on Black Scorpio, 1987, Digi Reggae. This was a cheap bin find in Seattle many years ago. Tony Tuff sounding quite at home in the dancehall era to my ears. 1990 would see apparently one of his final hits for a while on the A Love I Can Feel rhythm that was reused by Tony Rebel for Fresh Vegetable. The 1990s, however, would see Tony Tuff go largely quiet before beginning to return to recording in the 2000s. He did some sides for the Blood and Fire Records label, voicing over the Fisherman and Sata Masagana rhythms on their Tree of Sata and Congos and Friends Fisherman projects. He would also record a couple of LPs through Josh Shaka in the UK in the 2000s. He would remain active performing live, but April 20th of 2024 came the news that he had passed away at the age of 69. He'd reportedly been suffering from complications of diabetes. So we say a fond farewell to the man called Tony Tuff, forever identified with that dance hall era of the early 1980s, but really a legend of reggae music. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.